Good evening, YouTube. It's Hannah from Smaugish here, and I kind of just wanted to film a video, but I don't have particularly many ideas for this video other than I'm going to do a general sort of health video, because I've alluded a few times to the fact that I have a few health issues going on and a few ongoing health issues. And I've had a bit of a frustrating couple of weeks, if I'm honest, with my health, so I thought it'd be interesting to kind of vent, and I guess if anyone out there has had any experience with this, then they'd be able to help me. So this isn't my long-awaited mental health video. I might get around to filming that this weekend. I'm not exactly sure, because obviously it's going to be quite heavy and I don't know how I feel about that, because Pete's still on tour, he's still away for a week and a half, so I kind of feel I might need him around for a bit of extra support. So yeah, I have a number of health issues, and I've always had the things that I've always had. I mean, I used to have asthma as a child, and I've always had kind of issues with my nose when I was a baby, basically. My ENT tubes, because I don't know if you know, but you have tubes that connect like your nose, your ears and your throat. My tubes never developed properly, so I've always had issues with that, and I've always been very prone to sore throats, ear infections, that kind of thing. So I'm actually losing slight hearing in both of my ears because of that. I have lots of spinally shoulder issues. I dislocated my shoulder when I was 11, and I was in a car accident a couple of years ago, which kind of exacerbated an already apparent problem, I guess you could say. And so I get pain and I don't have full movement in one of my shoulders, which is wonderful. What other issues, like general issues, can I say? I've got accessory navicular syndrome, which is rather exciting, and it means I have the world's least useful mutation. I would be the world's most crap X-Man, because it means I have extra bones in my feet, which means my feet are extra wide. They do actually cause me problems every now and again, but the treatment involves a surgery that requires 3 to 6 months, like, off your feet, like off work and stuff, which that's just not practical. So currently I'm not dealing with that at all. Other general health problems I've had, I have kidney stones. I've had kidney stones in the past, and I have a sort of a higher chance of getting them again in the future, and of getting more kidney infections and things like that. I had an abscess at the base of my spine when I was 16, so again, that's one of those things that once you've had it, you're more likely to have it again. But the main issue that I've been now having, I've had it for, well, as you're about to find out, about 19 years. But really, I've sort of started to have investigation and real sort of thinking about it in the last 2 or 3 years, is either a gastrointestinal problem or a reproductive issue. Now, the last year or so, it's been properly investigated as being a gastrointestinal issue, maybe IBS. They ruled out Crohn's pretty quickly, something like that. But I and my mother and Pete, my boyfriend, and just so many people are convinced that it is actually a reproductive issue. So I started my period. Oh yeah, FYI, men, if you feel uncomfortable with period talk, this is gonna involve period talk. So I kind of feel like this is an important issue to talk about. Anyway, I started my period pretty early. I started my period when I was 9 years old, just sort of in between my 9th and 10th birthday. I'd say it was like closer to my 10th birthday, but I was still 9. And okay, that's pretty early. But that's just, I think that's a hereditary thing. My mum, as far as she can remember, started pretty early. She's pretty sure my nan started early. So yeah, that's kind of like a runs in the family thing. But my periods have always been exceedingly heavy and extremely painful, to the point where it got to the point when I was in my teen years and sort of early adulthood that I missed school, I missed work because it was just so awful. And I basically am in pain most of the time because of that. I get crampy period pain and soreness and uncomfortableness all the time, regardless where I am in my cycle. My periods have also been relatively irregular since I was young. Like, most people like know their cycle, they can track their period, they can like know when to expect their period. I've never been able to do that because it's always been something of a guessing game as to when my next period would start. And you know, I've gone through periods of time when my periods have stopped. I also spent, I think it was about 9 months where I had a period solidly for 9 months. So I had lots of issues with my period. Now, about 5 years ago, nearly, well, next year will be 5 years. Next year is my checkup, sort of changing year. I went to the doctor. I was like, look, please, I need something to help me cope with actually being able to go to work. Because taking a day off work every single month, at least one day, by the way, it may have been like 2. That is not practical. So, my doctor, obviously because of my weight, and I know that weight is a factor on periods, weight can affect periods, but the doctor put me on the Mirena Coil. So I've had the Mirena Coil since 2014, and it is a contraceptive obviously, but it wasn't, I didn't get it to be a contraceptive. I wasn't actually in a relationship at the time, so I got it just to manage my periods. And I remember some people that I worked with, or they were like, oh yeah, it's fantastic, I've got that, completely stopped my periods, or, you know, it'll make your period super light and less painful. And I'm like, oh, fantastic. So the Mirena Coil is the hormonal coil, basically. So it's a little T-shaped device that can either be a gynaecologist or a specialist doctor inserts into your vagina, basically, up into your uterus. And on the procedure, it feels a lot like a smear test, which, by the way, are incredibly, incredibly important. Take about 2 minutes, not scary at all. So you lie back, and they use a speculum to open up your vagina a little bit, and that's probably the most uncomfortable part of the whole procedure, but it's still, you know, it just feels a bit cold and a little bit strange. And then they insert this coil, this little T-shaped thing, into your uterus, and then it opens its arms and it basically embeds in the lining of your uterus and prevents an egg from embedding. And that's how you get pregnant, is an a fertilized egg travels down your fallopian tubes and embeds into the lining of your uterus. And what the coil does, and the copper coil works in the same way, is it kind of makes your body think there's already something there, and so it sheds and things like that. So the other way, the way that a Mirena differs from a copper coil, however, is the Mirena also releases hormones. And that is the part of it that helps to regulate your period. A copper coil can actually make periods heavier, whereas the Mirena Coil lightens them. So I was feeling really up for it. And, you know, when you get the coil inserted, you can have a little bit of discomfort and crampage, and a little bit of pain, and a little bit of blood, because it embeds, basically. But I felt that, and, you know, that was pretty manageable. I took some painkillers and I had some hot water bottle sort of action for a few days, but that was fine. And then I waited for my next period whenever it appeared. And honestly, it still hurts a lot. I'm on my period right now. I've had cocodamol. Okay, I had cocodamol about a couple of hours ago, so it's starting to wear off. But I've been in pain almost the whole time. So what I like to say to people is that the Mirena Coil made my periods normal. I now have a normal amount of pain and a normal amount of heaviness. Like, my periods are still ridiculously heavy, but they're not heavy to the point where I feel faint or dizzy or, you know, sick. I still feel sick. I still get, you know, this is really horrible and icky, but I still get period diarrhea and stuff like that. And And so all of these things, coupled with a few of the other symptoms I have, like TMI, I have a beard I have to pluck out. I obviously find it difficult to shift weight. My depression and mood swings, all just various things put together that made us think, yeah, something ain't right. Something ain't right. So I went to the doctor and I had my first ultrasounds for PCOS and things when I was 16. Didn't find anything, completely ruled it out. Okay, cool. When you remember that actually active fibroids or cysts is only one symptom of PCOS. You don't have cysts and fibroids the whole time, but okay, cool. And I had my next set, same thing. The doctors then decided they were going to give me an intravaginal, transvaginal, I believe it's called, sorry, ultrasound, which is where I had an ultrasound of my tummy, but they also put the camera up and sort of did the ultrasound through my vagina. Didn't find anything. They said my ovaries were fine, my womb was fine, so clearly it ain't a problem with my reproductive system. The problem is, and I am convinced, I am not a fan of self-diagnosing. I hate self-diagnosing. But I am almost convinced that it is a reproductive problem, and I am almost convinced it is something along the lines of endometriosis. Because endometriosis symptoms can be misdiagnosed as IBS symptoms, bloating, cramping, problems with food, constipation, diarrhea. They are all symptoms of endometrial problems. Obviously painful periods, dysmenorrhea, which means painful and heavy periods, mood swings. All of those issues are also endometrial issues. Now the problem is, and this is the problem that I am fighting at the moment, this is the thing I'm fighting against, is that the only real way of diagnosing an endometrial condition is through I can't say this, so I'm going to put it up here, but it's a laparoscopy, which is where they make an incision and they go in that way, and they scrape off and they see if there is anything. Now, endometriosis is actually only one endometrial condition, but it's the sort of the main one. And the problem with endometriosis is the lining of your womb, or your uterus, is the endometrium. And when you have endometriosis, and there are a number of causes for this, the lining of the womb grows in other places. So it could be your pelvis, your fallopian tubes, your ovaries. It can just grow elsewhere. And there are at least 3 causes for this. One of them is basically your period flows the wrong way. Another one is genetic, and then there's another reason. I'm not going to go into that right now. But the issue is that there are only 1 or 2 very specific ways to truly diagnose endometriosis or an endometrial issue. And I am absolutely fighting with the doctors, and I have been my whole life, to get this issue. Now today, the frustrating thing, I had an abdominal scan today because I went to the doctor last week. I actually left work to get an emergency appointment because I was in so much pain. I was like, this is not right. The day before, I had been sent home from work at lunchtime because I was not right. I was in so much pain I could not function. So went to the doctor, said this isn't right. I'd actually sort of composed myself enough to write down a list of my symptoms, and I said, here are my symptoms. He basically said, no, I think all your period issues are a red herring. My money, I am absolutely certain it's gallstones. So I've had gallstones for 19 years. Okay. So he booked me in. I had my ultrasound, my abdominal ultrasound, which is, you know, they scanned here and my side. Everything's fine. There is nothing wrong with my liver, my gallbladder, my spleen, my pancreas, my kidneys. Everything is fine. Now, she said, oh, the other thing that you could look at is, you know, your intestines and your colon and your bowels. I had a colonoscopy last year before Christmas. It was one of the worst things I've ever had to endure in my entire life. There's nothing wrong with my colon. There is nothing wrong with my gastrointestinal system. I am so sure it is endometrial or reproductive. Like, I am so sure. Good news is I have an appointment with the new lady specialist, gynaecological specialist at my GP surgery. Bad news is it's not until April, so I've still got 3 weeks to wait until I hopefully see somebody who's a little bit more sympathetic or empathetic. This is something that the health issues that I've been alluding to in so many of my videos. But I think I should probably draw this video to a close because it's already getting really long. But yeah, those are the health problems I'm going through. I'm really hopeful that in about 3 weeks' time, I will have something more of an update of progress to share. Because my health issues have been a long old battle and an absolute nightmare. But I am hopeful that the end is in sight, because if nothing else, so many things have been crossed off the list. It is honing in, it is narrowing down the possibilities. So yes, if you've had any experience with any of the things I've spoken about in this video, please do comment, let me know. How long did it take you to get a diagnosis? Because sometimes lady problems, they can be hell and they can be such a battle to get diagnosed. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry this turned into an absolute epic of a video, and I will see you again soon. Bye.